The purpose of my interview with you is both to talk some about the really interesting strands of research that you've done, and I'd like to begin the interview with you kind of looking back and thinking these are the things I'm the most excited about that I've worked on, and then maybe turn to some of these questions about innovation in the social sciences, what the big challenges are, how social science disciplines, government, political science, sociology, anthropology, or the interdisciplines could be moving forward in a more constructive way.
Okay. You want me to free associate?
Yeah, why don't you start freely?
Well, I guess the best way to start, I'm fundamentally a historian, which is why I'm equally comfortable and uncomfortable in several disciplines. I guess the best way to start would be my own autobiography. And it would take you back to Italy when I was first an undergraduate and studying in the Syracuse semester in Florence in 1959, 1960, and discovered an interest in southern Italy. I don't really remember why I was interested in southern Italy, but it was an interest that drew me for and against what was then a famous book, and probably the only one in English, by a social scientist on southern Italy, Edward Banfield's Moral Basis of a Backward Society. And I found it fascinating and at the same time disturbing. Couldn't put my finger on why I found it disturbing, but it certainly did open the possibility that there were fundamental differences within Europe between more advanced, quote-unquote, European parts of Italy and other countries and more backward ones. And I'd never seen the backward ones. I'd only seen Florence and Milan and Rome until I got on the train to leave Italy at the end of my stay there. And I took the train to Naples. And I got off at Naples and had a day to kill, having been on the train all night, and went up to a carabiniere, a state policeman, who was guarding one of the gangways onto my ship. And I said to him in my broken Italian, I know it's not time to get on the ship yet, and they won't let me on the main gangway, but I'm exhausted. I've been traveling all night by train, and I've been walking around Naples all day. I wonder if you would let me on. And he looked at me and he said, walk up the gangway. And I said, is that all right? Because I was still thinking like a northern Italian. And he looked at me with a combination of humor and pity, and he said, Signorino, little sir, this is Naples. And I said to myself, this is what I'm interested in. And from that point on, I was interested, first of all, in paired comparisons, which has been the major methodological axis of my work ever since. Secondly, I became interested in the interaction between development and underdevelopment, which was the source of my interest in Gramsci, who was, after all, a southern Italian, a Sardinian. And third, it eventually got me interested in social movements. When I went back to the States and I applied to graduate schools, my first choice was Columbia because it was close. And when I was at Columbia, I went to the Casa Italiana, as most Italianists would sooner or later do, walked into the library, and found a gold mine. It was a treasure trove of books edited by a German linguist who had produced a series of about 400 pages, all of them identical, including maps of Spain, southern France, Portugal, and Italy. And each one of these pages included how a particular word was spelled in these four countries. And so you could take a word like thief, ladro, and you could see the etymology from Latin into these 4 different national languages. And I said to myself, this is what I'm interested in. This is my Europe. I'm going to spend my life looking at the relationship between northern, advanced, quote-unquote, civilized, democratic societies and the more backward ones, like southern Italy. And that was how I made my career, beginning with a return to Italy to write my PhD dissertation, which at first was intended to be a study of development and underdevelopment, and the administration of development policies in Italy. And then when that turned out to be a dead loss, I went to see the director of the Gramsci Institute in Rome, who was a historian named Franco Ferri, who I've lost touch with, and said, I'm hoping to study the development policies of the Italian government in southern Italy. And he immediately said, you're wasting your time. You won't learn anything. Those development policies are nothing more than the Christian Democratic Party's attempts to gain an electoral following in southern Italy. Very much, he said, like the political machines in the United States in the 19th century. Ah, I said, a historian and a comparativist. And he said, you'll be wasting your time working on this. I said, well, what would you recommend that I do work on? And he said, why don't you study the Communist Party in southern Italy? Well, like a suspicious young American liberal that I was at the time, I said, do you want me to study your party to show how successful it's been? He looked at me in surprise and he said, no, I would like you to study our party because we don't understand why we've been such failures in southern Italy. My ears perked up at this point, and he recommended I read a number of articles on the failures of the party in the South from the Communist Party's own journals. And I sat down in the library of the Gramsci Institute and read the most searing critica and autocritica, criticism and self-criticism of the party in its own journals. And I said to myself, I think I'm on to something. Because here is a party that was born in the industrial regions of northern Italy, that's relatively prosperous and relatively modern, that has tried to establish itself in the more backward, poverty-stricken rural areas of southern Italy, and it's failed. So it would give me the chance to try and compare North and South within the same party, using a logic of paired comparison in which a large number of possible intervening variables would be controlled for, because after all we're dealing with the same political system and the same institutions, but in which the same political party has encountered radically different circumstances in North and South, and has been relatively successful in the first region and relatively unsuccessful despite expectations in the second region. And that was what I did my dissertation on. It has, I think, structured the way I work, the way I think as a social scientist and the way I work ever since. It has, first of all, given me an unquenchable interest in social movements, and that's the red thread that carries through all my work ever since. It provided me with a template for the methodology I've used in a number of very different settings, the methodology of paired comparison. And third of all, it's given me a sense that you don't understand politics if you sit behind a computer and run the numbers. You've got to feel the flesh of the people who are engaged in seeking power, attacking their enemies, making alliances, trying to work with the social and cultural situation of the societies they live in.